Hi, I'm Heidi. I'm a witch, guide, soul alchemist, and a recovering academic. I've spent many years feeling fascinated by the ways that communities, individuals, and institutions like family and religion shape what's acceptable and what's forbidden, and what happens when we hide part of ourselves to fit in, to feel safe, and to belong. In this video series, I'm going to be exploring the witch wound. And in this episode, we're going to explore what is the witch wound and do you have to be a witch to experience it? Let's begin.
My name is Heidi, and I'm a witch, and I'm here tonight with Ahara, and we are bridging two hemispheres. I am calling or videoing in from the Pacific Northwest, and Ahara is in Australia. And we are here today to talk a bit about the witch wound. But first, I wanted to introduce Ahara and myself. I have known Ahara now for a couple of years, and I met her through a video marketing course for highly sensitive people. But before the course even started, I was so curious about Ahara because she invented these things called creator types, which are archetypes in nature that are present in our bodies. Like it correlates with our bone structure. And I was so fascinated by that I hunted Ahara down on the internet and met her and had my full profile done even before or very soon after I started the video marketing class. And I have just been fascinated by Ahara and her work since. And
And dot dot dot, you're now almost a qualified practitioner.
and dot dot dot. Yes, Ahara invited me to join her practitioner first round of practitioner training, which I started last May, and I will be finishing that this month and then traveling to Australia next month to participate in a live event and actually get to meet Ahara's flesh and bones in the body, along with other people in this practitioner training. So I'm very excited about that.
Me too. Meeting in the flesh instead of just this
Yeah,
part.
right, the heads.
Yep, talking heads.
Yeah. And in working with Ahara, was really uncovering my own witch wound kind of things. So Ahara and I decided to do this series together about the witch wound and really bringing it into our bones and our bodies.
Yeah, something I don't think has been done before. Do you?
I don't think so either.
Not
No.
quite. Yeah.
Not quite. Uh, so, yeah, so I thought today we will talk about the witch wound. What is it? Do you have to be a witch to have it? But also kind of want to open this up with this is going to be very raw and very real, maybe even a little offensive, derogatory. Who knows where it's going to go? We're just going to be,
Letting it all hang out
we're going to let it all hang out.
like
Exactly.
witches do.
Well, yeah, like witches do. Mm-hmm.
I should say I'm not technically a witch in this lifetime, but I certainly have been before, like many of us have. And so it's something that I have certainly witnessed and experienced myself in many different scenarios between women and how women interact specifically around their power. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm here today, is because, witch or no witch, I'm still in that exploration of how do we really own our power as women? Because there's many, many layers in history to why we don't. Yeah, that's a
Mm-hmm.
little taster to start with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I identify as a witch, and I would say that yeah, I'm the head witch here who wears knee pads.
I knew you'd slot that in somewhere.
I did, and but also because it's a wound that I've been healing for a very long time, um, consciously for the last probably 10 or 12 years when I first learned of it and how it's impacted my life. And I remember many years ago going to just sit to do a spell or a meditation or a shamanic practice, and I would get this recurring image of me hanging from a tree in a noose in this red dress with my hair flapping in the wind. It was actually kind of an elegant picture, reminds me of this background color too, just like there was a peacefulness to it, but also like, why am I continuing to get this image over and over and over again? I was like, oh, witch wound. And yeah, just have been working on it. And the noose, I think, speaks very well for an area of the body where many women can feel blocked from using their voice and their self-expression. And could be because we've been noosed many times in
Yeah.
the past for speaking.
Yeah. And like if you think about it through history, women wearing corsets was a kind of noose around the midsection of the body
Yeah.
to suck in and constrict their identity and their self-expression. So there's so many variations of the noose. It doesn't have to be dramatic as death. It's like it's come in so many different forms.
Yeah, I was even thinking about the corset and how it can really stop our breath too.
Yeah.
It's like so constricting that it's hard to breathe, and maybe we faint sometimes.
Well, yeah, because the breath, oxygen, oxygenates the fire in the belly. And that's what
So
throughout
you're
history,
pinching it.
you're pinching it, you're constricting the amount of oxygen that can be taken in to fuel the, fan the flame. And throughout history, that's what has happened to women. It's like, oh, don't express too much, don't say too much, be a lady. And then the witches come along in all different forms through different eras and completely scramble that. Right. They throw chaos into the ring. And of course, extreme measures have happened because of that and to make them disappear, to remove the
Mm-hmm.
chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel is in all women's bodies. Whether you have memories of being a witch or being burnt at the stake or not, it's in our DNA because that's
Yeah.
what we've lived through in so many different forms, that kind of suppression and in physical ways, like the corset. And so, it's just, and even like, with the feet and wearing tight, tiny little shoes, it's like, well, don't take up too much space,
Right.
because part of what owns your power, you own your power through how you stand in the world and your grounded nature and your posture. So then you put feet in these tiny shoes, these dainty shoes to seem more feminine, which is a completely distorted view of the feminine. It's like the polarized version of the soft, sweet, and nice.
Mm-hmm.
Have the raw, dirty, messy, chaotic wild woman on the other extreme, but it's polarized at one end. But like if you look at how physically that has happened through the ages and through fashion, through like, even like wearing bonnets and pinning the ears back and making the ears invisible, like there's so many ways to constrict someone's expression through just their clothes,
Yeah.
and we've lived through that.
Mm-hmm. And I hadn't thought about even the clothing aspect of it and the shoes. Like, I don't like wearing like super tight, pointy things. I want things with space that I could actually, walk comfortably. I would call them torture chambers when I would wear those kind of shoes,
Yeah.
which probably goes back to that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%. No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks. Exactly. Mm.
And even the high heels, lifting the heel off the ground. So you only have contact with half of the foot, the front half of the foot, and keep the base and the sacral part of the foot, the heel off the ground. Again, reducing a woman's power.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so it tips forward a woman's energy into the front parts of the body, so the upper parts, which are the appealing parts, the heart and the face and this upper part of the body is more palatable. But if you go below the waist, we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. It's too messy, too unpredictable.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of the women who work in strip clubs or burlesque performances, and they wear those shoes, or sex workers walking down the street. They're usually wearing those kind of shoes. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And so in that context, they're still tipping themselves forward, right?
Yeah.
And still making themselves a half a woman. Well,
Yeah.
they've got their legs spread, of course, but it's everything's an oxymoron. Everything is a contradiction on purpose, to restrict and confuse and hold back a woman's power. And of course, we're not ignoring that happening to men. Men wear nooses around their neck as like a tie. They're wearing a
Yeah.
noose, I mean, to constrict their expression too. So it's not just women.
Mm-hmm.
But these things don't get talked about. They don't get broken down in terms of like metaphorically, psychosomatically, what it means, what it does to the body, the messaging, that how we dress or how these norms are put on us come about. And you can do these things, sure, you can do a burlesque performance and wear ridiculous shoes, but do it consciously,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously. I wear red lipstick. That's not natural, but I
Yeah.
love it. I love it, but I do it consciously. And then I'm also not afraid of the opposite of not wearing it. So,
Yeah.
it's like really going a bit deeper with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Anyway,
on
which
the,
wound?
yeah, I will say I'm on the not wearing any red lipstick today because that's my favorite color, but I'm like, I'm not gonna wear it today.
You've got the red background, darling. Yeah.
That's true. I got all the fire.
Hmm. Yep. Perfect. So,
Oh. And okay, so yes, witch wound. But now also thinking of capes and hoods and what witches wear, right? I'm like, ooh, I gotta go get my red cape, but maybe not right now. But
yep.
even that, like cloaking, covering up, hiding. But maybe there's something also powerful about wearing a cape. I don't know. It seems like
Again, yeah.
yeah, like a covering up or a cloaking.
Well, it's revealing intentionally. Again, it's like if you do it
Yeah.
consciously, revealing
Yeah.
something intentionally, and sacred things are hidden on purpose. They're not just out there on display all the time. So it's also denotes that to me is like there's a sacredness to it.
Mm-hmm,
How you
mm-hmm.
do that. Yeah, how you do the unveiling.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
how does this relate to the witch wound? Because I think it's something that it's a term a lot of people haven't even heard and maybe don't even identify how it's playing out in their life. So how did you come to it?
Yeah. How I initially came to it was I was working with witches and they were telling me about or yeah, like noticing things in me. Um like my voice used to be very soft. I think it's louder now, but just kind of like things like that are interacting with them and learning like, oh, there's witches, there's witch wounds. And at this time I was in a PhD program, so like anti-witch, right? For the most part. Um, and then like one of them, her name is Lauren, she gave me some books to read and I started, reading those and just kind of learning more about um there's one called The Womb Awakening that I'm still in the midst of that I really love, like a history of priestesses and witches and their suppression. And I was noticing these similar patterns like, oh, I'm afraid to take up space, or I'm afraid to speak up for myself, or wow, it's terrifying when I go to sit down and do something witchy and I get this image of me being hung. And there's why do I feel this fear of being banished or being killed or being silenced? And the banishment one was a big one of like, oh, if I on the subconscious level, like, oh, if I do this, then I'm going to be banished. I remember even during for my doctoral journey, I had to do a defense against of my research, and my committee was filled with men, but I was also in psychic school for, I don't know, a year about that at that point, and I was doing coaching and doing more witchy things like learning about herbalism and rituals and spells. And I asked my advisor, because they usually ask a PhD candidate what they're going to do with their future when they're done. And I was like, please don't ask me, because you all will reinstitute witch burning, because I'm doing psychic readings right now and I'm doing like these other things. And I was like, just don't ask, because I had that fear of like, I don't want to go in there with this room of older men and be accused of being a witch, which wasn't going to happen, but it was a fear. More recently, like realizing things like the good girl, be nice, be quiet, cross your legs, all of that kind of can stem from the times when in our past lives, current life, where we have been punished for doing those things. And oftentimes it was directed at witches, particularly around sexuality. So, oh, I feel like I'm rambling here, but there's two things that are coming up. Like, for a long time, not wanting to be around groups of women, and also my sexuality. Like, those are two big areas that I had so much fear around and layers to undo, that to me really tied into the witch wound once I started reading more about it. So it was like my lived experience reading about it that felt validating, and then really coming to like, oh, a witch wound. And also plant medicine helped a little bit with that, kind of helping unearth that.
Yeah. Nice. I'm pretty sure most women can identify with at least one of those. Not being wanting to be in groups of women, which isn't necessarily spoken out loud or acknowledged enough. I know some people do speak to it, but often it's a suppressed feeling. And yeah, sexuality, the big clanger in there as well. But I also like that you mentioned priestesses, and it's all essentially the same thing. It's a different expression of feminine power.
Yeah.
Whether it's witch or priestess or goddess or, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's still the same expression. And can we own it? And the biggest sign is pretty much what you said, I think, is how women get along with each other, how they converse. Do they actually genuinely support each other, or do they quietly compete? And you see it everywhere in all different forms. And there's not many examples of women actually going, we're real allies here together. And the only way, in my view, that that actually happens is each woman has to own their power and not be in suppression of it. Because either they'll come together with other women and they'll dominate, or they will shrink.
Yeah.
Or oscillate between the two. So that's how is when you see women together who are standing together in their own right, in their own power, completely in their own centers. It is absolutely our nature to support and combine our power, not undermine it.
Yeah.
That's what I've witnessed.
Okay. I'm reminded of my very first witch camp, which was a few years ago, and I was in New Orleans in a mansion with these witches, none of whom I knew, and we were sitting around in a circle talking and expressing fears. And I was the one who said, I'm feeling really afraid about being in this room with a group full of women. Like, it's not worked out well in the past, in this lifetime, and likely in others. And the person who was facilitating and leading the witch camp, she's like, that's why I started this, because I wanted a community where women supported other women. And I really loved that. I went back a few times, and it was really enlightening and heartwarming to be in a community where there were all of us coming together, doing some witchy shit, building
Yeah.
rituals. We're all supporting each other. And then to come back home to regular life was really hard because it doesn't
Yeah.
really not existing as much. Last year, I facilitated an underworld death and rebirth journey for a group of women, and there were a couple of women in there who were not of the we're all rising up together type, which was it was interesting to experience that.
Yeah.
And like
Because
that's
this,
really,
yeah, this wound runs really deep, right?
yep.
No, so it's like that might be the original intention, but then the other layers get shown, and can they be, cleared? Because we should be able to clear this wound collectively as well as we come together if we do it consciously. And that's why I love that you're doing this series and bringing this to the table about the witch wound, because it's not something that's looked at or talked about openly in my experience. And yet it plays out every single day between women. The witch wound also plays out with men, but we'll start here.
Yeah, I'll start
If
here
you can't get
exactly.
along, exactly, like if you can't get along with your own kind, how on earth do you expect to get along with the opposite sex?
Mm-hmm.
Because getting on with your own kind is a reflection of you, of like, okay, and that's why women find it really challenging and confronting to be around other women, is because it's like, oh, I've got really actually got to look at myself and I've got to own my power because this woman's going to push me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
I'll try and manipulate my way around it or dominate or shrink or whatever it is the response is. And then that plays out in every other area. So the litmus test really is this, in my opinion, is like, can you be around other women and be comfortable and also just honest and raw about what does come up, because we're not perfect and there's a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's incredibly, I wouldn't say complex, but I would say layered. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed the light's very bright. Um, but I was thinking about even my own kind of redirecting to romantic relationships, just more like I need to get my shit together with women. Not even
Mm.
my shit together, but just like I had been for a long time craving a community of women who are supportive
Yeah.
and kind of directing my attention there. Kind of like, yeah, need to get that part working
Yes.
better.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, you're doing it now, aren't you, Heidi? You're kind of putting the big, ugly head of the beast on the table first up, which I think is brilliant because it changes the game from the start. It's like, well, if we're going to get together as women, witches or not,
Yeah.
then let's talk about what's real. Let's talk about the elephant in the room and let's just make it common knowledge. Like, let's just make it clear and open and up for discussion. And that's what you're doing with this series, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important to me. Just like one of the things I get really excited about is getting to the bones of things, right? Which is the creator types getting to bones. And I want to strip away, remove all of those things that aren't actually, well, I want to keep my flesh, but I like to remove all the things that keep me from my own bones, my skeleton, my structure, what's true to me, rather than all the layers that have been kind of piled on, layered on through conditioning. Yeah, I'll just say conditioning or various forms of training. And so I really love kind of the death and transformation of things, which is probably one of the things why I love being a witch, because I love the kind of stripping away the death and kind of revealing what's underneath, which isn't always going to be pleasant, and it's going to be dark and scary and hopefully fun. You know?
Yeah.
deeper into that. Um,
Yeah, well, I know bones are a thing, with witches, and um, it's been an amazing magic and transformational tool used throughout the ages as well. But we don't really think about our own bones that
no.
much. And so it does bring this realness, and it's kind of like your ground zero. And that's what we do when we look at bodies. We look through that lens of, well, what's the bone structure and how is the energy flowing through this form? So you don't kind of get more to the core than that. you know and if you start there, if you start with the bones instead of the flesh, you work your way outwards, and then you start to see so much more. But most people only normally go skin deep or flesh deep, instead of looking at, well, why am I in this particular bone structure? Because that's what's been passed down through time, through ages. The
Mm-hmm.
bones are the storage of, what do you want to say? Like, it's like the library
Mm-hmm.
of history is in the bones.
Yeah.
It's not in the flesh. The flesh doesn't go back that far. The flesh is more responsive in the present time. But your bones were formed from your ancestry in the womb and then shaped in your early environment. So there's something very fundamental about bones. And if we can understand that in ourselves, then that's really where the power is, in working with the bones in whatever form you choose.
Yeah, and I appreciate that connection to what it makes me think of, you mentioned the witches and the bones and using bones. They would use them for divination. They still do. But then I was thinking, like, well, we use our own bones for our own magic. Like, we have our own bone magic within us, and it operates differently depending on our bone structure. And also appreciating that's where the things get passed down, right? The flesh is more current. It's
Yeah.
the emotional landscape of our experience, not our skeleton.
Yeah. And if you can own your bones and your flesh, well, that's power, because you're creating it and you're transforming it now for the next generation, or however that gets passed on. Your body is the expression of how you choose to walk in those bones and flesh. It's the ultimate, right? It's the only thing we own. We don't own anything else.
Yeah, that's our
Really.
bodies.
Yeah, but we often just flip it and go the other way, look outside. And I think that's the key with women and women coming together, is if you can own that in yourself, you will have a seamless, magical relationship with other women who do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Own it. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Own
Mhm.
your power. But there's so much more to that. We're going to talk about that, aren't we, in the next videos?
Yeah. Yeah. So if we already mentioned this, but we don't need to be witches to have witch wounds, because it's really a human wound carried through certain centuries.
Yep.
Or it's like coming from different centuries. So yeah, don't need to be a witch, don't need to be a female, don't need to be any particular
True.
gender. Right? Just, um, we all have it on some level.
Yeah, because it's a
But
power wound, and humans are nowhere near at their capacity and power.
what
We
was
all know
that?
that.
The what?
Well, it's a power wound, and so humans are nowhere near meeting their capacity in
Mm-mm.
power terms.
No, no, and really owning owning our bodies, owning our power. Those are the only two things we can truly own, right? Anything else can be taken away, and those can be taken away too. We have sometimes given them away, or having them been taken from us. So it's like a reclamation process too, or like reclamation, yeah, kind of reclaiming
Yeah.
our sovereignty. Hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay. So,
So what's next, Heidi? What's the next topic?
what the next topic is going to be about, where did the witch wound come from? I think it'd be a great next topic. So we talked a little bit about what the witch wound is, how it can impact us, but then where does it even come from? So I think that's what we'll explore in the next one.
Cool. Can't wait.
Yeah, I can't
Thank
wait
you.
either. You're welcome.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And thanks, Sahara, for joining me today.